All right, so tonight.
We're diving deep into something a little unexpected. We're looking at what happens after the Last Supper. You know, that moment when Jesus says goodbye to his apostles.
Mm-hmm.
And we're drawing on the Urantia book for this deep dive.
Okay.
And you know what makes this so fascinating? The sheer detail. It's not just the broad strokes. We're talking about these really intimate conversations, almost like Jesus knew exactly what each of them needed to hear before, well, everything changed.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting? At this point in the story, the apostles, they're expecting a conquering king. They think it's all about to go down right here on earth.
A very literal kingdom.
Yeah. And then Jesus starts talking about leaving, about a different kind of kingdom. And I think that's got to be jarring for them. They don't get it yet.
You can practically feel the tension, right? So how does Jesus comfort them? Well, he says something that's been repeated for centuries. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. But this is way more than just a nice thought, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This isn't just, the absence of conflict or anything like that. It's the peace that comes from really knowing God, from aligning yourself totally with a plan that's bigger than you. Think about Jesus during his ministry. Even when things were a mess, he had this inner peace, this calm at his core, because he was so connected to God.
And that's the peace he's promising them.
Exactly. A peace that's unshakable no matter what's going on around you.
And he doesn't stop there. He also promises to return, just for a bit, though.
Right.
And this is where it gets interesting, because the Urantia book makes a distinction between this return and the arrival of the Spirit of Truth.
Yeah, that's huge.
So can you unpack that for us?
Okay, so think of it this way. This first return, that's Jesus after the resurrection, those appearances. They're these powerful moments, but they're brief. It's about solidifying their faith.
Proving it's not over.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But the real guidance, the lasting presence, that comes later with the Spirit of Truth.
So it's less about a king coming back to rule and more like, a shepherd reassuring his flock.
Yeah. And also preparing them to lead themselves eventually. It's like he's giving them a glimpse of the future, and the Spirit of Truth is key to that. This isn't about blind faith. It's about this inner guide, this direct connection to the divine that helps you navigate life,
It's like he's saying, I'm giving you the tools, showing you the way, but the actual journey, that's on you.
Exactly. And here's what's fascinating. Jesus then tailors his final instructions to each apostle. He takes their personalities, their needs, all of it into account.
It's like a coach giving each player a pep talk before the big game. So let's dive into some of these personal goodbyes, shall we?
Let's do it.
We'll start with John, the beloved disciple.
Yeah, John's interesting. He represents this more introspective, sensitive side of faith, He's the one who asks how to love more deeply.
And Jesus' answer, beautiful in its simplicity. You will learn to love your brethren more when you first learn to love their Father in heaven more. So it's not just about feeling love, it's about...
Right, it flows from somewhere else.
Understanding that connection we all share with something bigger.
It's about recognizing that divine spark in everyone. That's a powerful message, especially these days.
It really is. Now, on to someone a bit more, shall we say, forceful.
Yeah.
Simon Zelotes. This guy is passionate.
Oh, yeah, Simon, he's got that fire, that revolutionary spirit, but he's also really stuck on this idea of a very literal kingdom, overthrowing Rome by force.
He's got the loyalty, the drive, but maybe missing the point.
A little bit, yeah. And Jesus, in his infinite patience, he gently corrects him. He acknowledges Simon's devotion, but you can almost hear this knowingness in his voice. He knows Simon's going to be devastated when things don't play out like he's expecting.
Right, like Simon, I see your heart. But true strength, that's about aligning your will with the Father's.
Exactly. He's guiding Simon to a deeper understanding, one that's less about outward change and more about that inner transformation.
And isn't that such a good reminder for all of us? Sometimes the biggest battles we face are the ones within ourselves, right?
All the time, yeah.
Those moments when we have to let go of our limited understanding and embrace something bigger. But we'll save that for next time. Where we left off, it seemed like Simon Zelotes was having some trouble wrapping his mind around the idea that the kingdom wasn't exactly going to be a physical one. And we were about to get to Jesus' interaction with Peter.
Yeah, and Peter's a trip, isn't he? Always good intentions, but...
A bit impulsive.
You could say that.
And that knowing look Jesus gives him. Classic. It's like he can see right through Peter,
Totally. And that's when Jesus drops this line. What experience must you pass through before you will learn to set a guard upon your lips?
It's almost playful, but you can hear the seriousness underneath, right?
Absolutely. And, well, that tendency to just speak his mind, it's about to land Peter in hot water, right?
Yeah.
That's where the whole denial thing comes in.
It's such a heavy moment, but even in that, you get the sense of compassion from Jesus. Like, he gets it.
He knows what's coming, and it's like he's saying, look, Peter, I know you're going to mess up. It's going to hurt, but you'll get through it. It's part of the journey.
Right. He's not condemning Peter. He's preparing him. Like, this is going to be tough, but you'll come out stronger on the other side.
Yeah. And it makes you realize we've all been there, haven't we? Said things we regret, made choices that seemed right at the time.
But it's that reminder that messing up, it's not the end. It's how we learn and grow.
And just like he did with Peter, Jesus offered each of the apostles guidance that was tailored to them. It's remarkable, really.
Speaking of which, what about those Zebedee brothers, James and John? They were quite the ambitious duo.
Weren't they? Remember, they were the ones who asked for the prime seats in the kingdom.
Always vying for those front row spots.
Exactly. And Jesus, with that perfect blend of firmness and kindness, he uses that moment to remind James, whether your ministry be long or short, possess your soul in patience. It's almost like he's saying, guys, your ambition, it's not a bad thing. Just temper it, channel it. True strength comes from serving something larger than yourselves.
Right. It's not about chasing accolades. It's about
the bigger picture, trusting in the timing of things.
surrendering to something beyond our own plans.
Exactly. And, that brings us to Andrew. Now, he was often in the background, but always there, always reliable.
The one Jesus chose to be the group's administrator.
Right. That's the one. But as Jesus is preparing to leave, he tells Andrew, from now on you may exercise no jurisdiction over your brethren, except that which you have earned in your capacity as spiritual leader, and which your brethren therefore freely recognize.
So it's a shift from an assigned role
to leadership that's earned, based on respect, on spiritual connection, not just a title.
It's almost like Jesus is saying, Andrew, your strength is in bringing people together, inspiring them through who you are, not what position you hold.
It's a good reminder for all of us, isn't it? True leadership, it's not about power. It's about using your gifts to serve others.
And sometimes it's knowing when to step back, let others shine, and offer support without trying to control everything.
Which, speaking of teamwork, brings us to James and Judas, the Alphaeus twins. Now, they were kind of the unsung heroes, weren't they?
The ones who consistently show up, get things done, no fanfare needed.
And Jesus sees that. He recognizes their dedication, telling them, hard times are just ahead of us, but never doubt that you were once called to the work of the kingdom.
It's like he's saying, your work hasn't gone unnoticed. You matter. Don't ever forget that.
In a world obsessed with recognition and accolades, it's a powerful reminder. True service isn't about applause. It's about showing up authentically, consistently, even when no one's looking.
And that brings us to Philip, who, if I remember correctly, was always the one who needed a little extra convincing.
Oh, Philip, the king of I'll believe it when I see it.
He's the one who asked Jesus to show them the Father, right? Like, if you could just do that one little thing.
That's our Philip. And it's interesting because in these final hours, you can almost sense Jesus gently steering him towards a deeper understanding of faith. He tells him, far better that you should have seen all this by faith, but since you were sincere, even in your material-sightedness, you will live to see my words fulfilled.
It's almost like he's saying, Philip, I get where you're coming from. You need that proof. But imagine if you could embrace the possibility of something more, something beyond what you can see right in front of you.
Yeah, and he challenges Philip even further, saying, dedicate your life to the cause of leading mankind, to search for God, and to seek eternal realities with the eye of spiritual faith, and not with the eyes of the material mind. It's like, whoa, that's a big ask.
It really is. It's calling us to step outside of what we think we know, to trust in those unseen forces that shape our lives.
And to trust in ourselves, too, to trust that inner knowing. And that leads us to Nathanael. He was known for his sincerity right from the beginning, even when he was skeptical at first.
Nathanael, the one who was like, Nazareth, really?
That's him. But even though he had those initial doubts, he was drawn to how genuine Jesus was. Honesty was super important to him.
So how does Jesus approach that in their final exchange?
It's interesting. He recognizes the power of being sincere, but he has this little caveat. Sincerity is most serviceable in the work of the kingdom when it is wedded to discretion.
It's like he's saying, Nathanael, I appreciate that you're always straight with me, But even truth needs to be shared with kindness and awareness.
Right, like timing and delivery matter. It's not just about blurting things out, even if you mean well.
And knowing that sometimes those communication breakdowns are just inevitable, Jesus gives Nathanael this advice. If you find yourself going off in quest of those who think as you do, in that event, dedicate your life to proving that the God-knowing disciple can become a kingdom builder, even when alone in the world, and wholly isolated from his fellow believers.
Whoa, that's powerful. It's like he's saying, Nathaniel, even if you find yourself on your own, don't underestimate the impact you can have. Your unique perspective, that's valuable.
It's a good reminder for all of us who've ever felt like we don't quite fit in. Your path might be different, but that doesn't make it any less important.
It's like that saying, be the change you want to see in the world. You might be one person, but you can still make a difference.
Absolutely. And that brings us to our last apostle in this incredible series of farewells, Thomas, who often gets a bad rap for being the doubter.
Yeah, poor Thomas. Always remembered for needing proof. But he wasn't just being difficult, you know?
Oh, totally. He had a curious mind, he wanted evidence, and honestly, isn't that a good thing?
Totally. And instead of shutting him down, Jesus actually honors that part of him. He says to Thomas, after I have gone, your brethren will the more appreciate your critical way of viewing new teachings.
He's basically giving him permission to question, to think critically. In a world where blind faith is often celebrated, that's pretty remarkable, right?
It really is. It's like Jesus is saying, Thomas, use your brain, ask questions, look for evidence, don't just take my word for it.
Exactly. And it makes me think maybe there are times when we need a little bit of that Thomas energy in our own lives. Like, it's okay to ask questions, to want proof, to not just accept things blindly.
100%. It's about finding that balance, right? Between trusting your gut and being discerning, using your head.
And, as we wrap up this deep dive into these really intimate moments between Jesus and his apostles, one thing that stands out to me is how much he loved them.
Totally. Unconditionally, flaws and all.
He saw their potential even when they doubted themselves. And he challenged them to love each other in that same way, to work together even when they didn't always see eye to eye.
It's such a powerful message, and it's not just for those 12 guys back then. It's for all of us. We all have a role to play. We're all capable of incredible things when we come together with love and compassion.
It's about recognizing that spark of divinity in everyone, even when it's hidden, even when it's messy. We're all part of something much bigger than ourselves. And that's something worth celebrating, something worth striving for.